Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Garbage Time Takes. As always, I'm Derek with my co-host Bobby
Bobby.
and Dennis, who has managed to make it on time 2 weeks in a row. Can we get a round of applause for Dennis? Can we get a round of applause? Thank you, Dennis,
No
for
applause, just money, please. Just money.
thank you for putting us at the top of your priorities. It's great to have you. Bob, do we have an update on how last week's episode did?
Oh, we do have an update, and it was our second most viewed video on our YouTube page ever. I believe we're sitting at around 35 views right now, which is pretty mean considering that that's above YouTube analytics says that's above average for us. So
We'll take it.
We'll take it, and once again, thank you everybody for your support. And
Did we hit the 10 subscriber goal, Bob?
we have hit the 10 subscriber goal, and we also just hit 20 followers on Instagram as well. So thank you everybody.
Let's go.
That's following on Instagram because that's probably our main source of getting the word out right now. So thank you everybody, and let's try to get back to number one in the video ranking. Get 60 views on this next one. Let's hope.
60 views, 25 subs, 25 sub goal. I think that's where we go from here.
Bobby, how are we doing on the race against the glucose tolerance test? Is that what? How are we gonna?
I think we're still losing that one.
We're still for everybody that doesn't know that joke. Whenever you look up GTT on YouTube, we always whatever comes up is glucose tolerance test. So we're hoping that by the time we're done with this operation, it will be us as the GTT that everybody knows and loves.
Right, baby.
So we need your help to beat the glucose tolerance test and achieve greatness.
Correct. But yeah, thanks again, everyone, for the support. I guess we can get into this week's episode. Bob, great background as always, but just to prevent some confusion among our viewers, that may be Talladega Nights, but we do not discuss NASCAR out in these streets. Zero knowledge. But very good.
I have nothing to add to that discussion myself. Nothing. Zero.
But yeah, I guess we can briefly start off with the conclusion of Thursday Night Football that just happened. Chiefs, Chargers, and what could be a preview of the top two teams. Surely in the AFC West and could be a potential championship game, divisional playoff game down the road. Justin Herbert, I believe, had 3 TDs and an interception. Patty Mahomes, 2 TDs. Chiefs defense came up with a big pick 6 late. What do you guys think? I for one feel vindicated in that the Chargers are a threat to win the AFC West. I personally thought they would split the season series with the Chiefs and home. So far, unfortunately, they dropped to 0-1 against Kansas City. But the way they looked against Las Vegas last week and then coming out and really giving it Kansas City all they had and probably would have won if not for that pick 6, I'm feeling pretty good about the Chargers.
Dennis?
Yeah, I mean, it's might be one of the first podcasts here to review it. We literally just ended as we basically hit the record button and started recording this podcast. So initial reaction, obviously the Chiefs pick up the W in Arrowhead, which is always a big factor. And just like Derek said, split home and home possible, still on the table. Herbert got banged up a little bit at the end of this one, which is a concern for the Chargers. It looked like he was really kind of grabbing at his rib cage, which is never something you want to see, especially out of a quarterback. So, I mean, hopefully he's okay. He was getting roughed up in this game. Derek mentioned the Chiefs, the pick 6. And I think the more concerning thing, if you're a Chargers fan, and I haven't looked into the numbers, it felt like Herbert was under pressure a lot.
Yeah, I thought so, especially in the second half. I mean, there were a couple drives where they were deep in their own territory, and Karlaftis was getting after it. Rashawn Slater was getting abused a little bit. I agree. The Chargers O-line didn't really hold up their end of the bargain there towards the late second.
Yeah, it really didn't feel like the Chargers O-line was holding up their end of the bargain, like you said. And, of course, you have to factor in Keenan Allen did not play in this game. So, one of the go-to options for Herbert, really reliable receiver there on the outside, not playing, obviously a factor. And you do have to be encouraged by the fact that Chargers hung right there and really were just,
Yeah,
a
Mike
mistake or
Williams
two
was
away from winning the football
fantastic.
game. He was. Yep.
I mean,
Mike
that
Williams was
one-handed
really
catch in the
good.
corner of the end zone was really good.
Yeah, I don't have anything particularly else, Bobby. What do you think?
Uh, I love watching both these two teams play. Anytime they're on TV, it's always flip over because you're going to get some excitement. Um, I mean, I had the Chiefs as the better of the two teams coming into the season. So far, they've proven that right. But like you
Known
said,
Justin Herbert hater, Bobby Epler.
it's more of a doubting Thomas syndrome with the Chargers more than anything. It's just like I want to go out and see them win that, beat the Chiefs before I'm gonna annoy anybody, you know. And so Justin Herbert looked quite good for most of the night. I mean, he's just such a smooth thrower of the football, which his throwing motion is very smooth. He always seems to be able to make the tight throw, which is all very encouraging stuff. I think that the split is very, very possible based on the result that we saw tonight. Nothing about the Chiefs blew me away, but once again, it's just that thing the Chiefs always seem to be able to squeak out those games that are nip tuck. They've been there before. They've been there. They've done it, and so I think maybe including the injury to both Herbert and his lead wideout, just kind of led the charge for the Chiefs to take over today.
Yeah, 17-7. Chargers had control late in the third quarter. And they have to there are no moral victories in the NFL. It's a wins and losses league, as I'm sure Bob is going to love to point out as we talk about the Lions later on. But there are some encouraging things. Chargers defense held a very potent Kansas City offense that scored 44 points last week to 20. They lost 27-24, but 7 of those points come off the pick six. So you hold the KC offense to 20 points at home.
They're going to win most of those games, yeah.
9 times out of 10 you win that game. This just happened to be the one game where the team that just manages to close out games and has the championship pedigree like the Chiefs do. And at home, they showed why, they're not going anywhere even without Tyreek Hill. So definitely the Chargers, it's one of those things like we'll talk about with the Lions. It's those little things that separate you from, getting into that next tier of what your goals are in. So far, unfortunately, the Chargers weren't able to pull it off tonight, but still very early, week 2. I'm sure they'll get much better. But fortunately, Justin Herbert has an extended 3 days to sort of heal up after getting banged up, like Dennis said. But before we recap the rest of the NFL games from week 1, I figured we'd take a brief minute just to talk about college football last week. We are Marshall upsetting Notre Dame in South Bend, confirming what I thought about the Fighting Irish and that they are frauds and that they were ranked number 5 just to give Ohio State and the media and the ratings a top 5 matchup. I feel pretty vindicated in thinking that Ohio State is still very beatable because Notre Dame's offense is atrocious. And even though their defense is still fairly good, they lost to Marshall. I mean, there's not much else you can say about that. Matthew McConaughey is, I'm sure, through the roof. Bob, you're known, we are proponent. Your thoughts on, the upset in South Bend?
I am a We Are the proponent, and I recall early in that game sending a message to Jonathan Derrick saying, keep your eye on it because the herd is looking to get loose. And needless to say, they took a lead and really never looked much back in that one. I mean, Notre Dame was always kind of playing from the back foot. This is what college football is all about. This is why you tune in every week. The number of top-tier upsets that happen in week 2. And this is why I love the non-conference schedule so much is because you get to see teams that get paid millions of dollars to come knock off the big boys, and there's nothing better than that. And especially when it's a story movie put to film program such as Marshall. There's really no better team for it to happen to.
Dennis, what do you think about the home that Randy Moss built, taking on Notre Dame and getting it done?
I mean, the Thundering Herd, Derek. I mean, you guys already talked about it. Absolutely got to love it. That's what college football is all about. And
I mean, as a
there's
Cincinnati
several.
fan, it must warm your heart, Dennis, to watch Notre Dame go down.
I mean, here's the thing. Like, sure, but like, why is every single team just like hate Notre Dame? Like, it's like, Michigan fans, they have a rivalry with Notre Dame. Michigan State rivalry, Ohio State, Cincinnati. Like, does anybody not have a rivalry with Notre Dame?
The Catholics, maybe. That's about the only people I can think of. I mean, when you walk around sporting gold helmets, thinking you're all that, and you have this holier than thou attitude among your program, and your head coach is flaming his alma mater before the week one game, and then he gets his mouth shut up. I mean, Notre Dame fans have been cocky because they're FBS independents and they have their own brand deal with NBC, and then they go out and start 0-2 and immediately eliminate themselves from the college football playoff. So you're right, Dennis. I don't think there isn't anyone that doesn't hate Notre Dame unless you're a Notre Dame fan, because
Yeah.
they're
And
insufferable.
I'm by no means a big Notre Dame fan. I thought it would have been cool to see Marcus Freeman have some success, but now it's just now he's just kind of being obnoxious and he's just not winning. So, it's not breaking my heart, that's for sure.
Yeah. Another big upset, as Bob alluded to, App State going down to Texas A&M, College Station, and knocking off Texas A&M in absolute dominant fashion. I think they had over 40 minutes time of possession and just absolutely squeezed the life out of the Aggies in that stadium. It certainly warms my heart because anything that can help take a little bit of heat off of App State beating Michigan. I think has it been 15 years now? I think it's been 15 years since that fateful day where App State, defending two-time FCS champions, mind you, came into Ann Arbor and knocked off a overrated Michigan team, if I remember correctly. A lot of people like to give Michigan crap as if FCS was some no-name team. No, they were like undefeated 2 years in a row in the FCS. But Bob, what do you think? The Mountaineers, they do it again after nearly pulling it off week one.
You can run, but you can't hide if you're top team playing App State, and those people live and breathe football, and they're coming to show you every week. And nothing warms my heart more, just a touch more than the Herd, but than to see App State pull it off. Just the history there, the memories, the beautiful memories. So I applaud the Mountaineers for getting the job done.
Dennis, your thoughts, and is the Sun Belt East the best division in college football? I mean, you got App State, you've got Marshall, you've got Old Dominion, who beat Virginia Tech week one, you've got Georgia Southern, who just beat Nebraska and single-handedly fired Scott Frost.
Finally.
Is the Sun Belt East the best division in college football? The people are talking.
I'm not gonna lie, that's incredible. I had no idea. I would never have guessed. I feel enlightened to know that all these teams are in the Sun Belt East. That's incredible.
Not to mention
the thing that
James
gets me,
Madison, who's leading all of FBS in scoring per game.
I guess we just got to go out.
Juggernaut.
We just got to go out and see some of these games. I mean, this is top-notch stuff. We got to go attend in person. I mean, these stadiums aren't going to be big enough to hold the crowd that they're bringing in. I mean, all these schools are going to have to start going playing at these places, at App State and at Marshall, because they're going to be the teams that you actually have to try to beat. Because, I mean, that's the thing that gets me is the ludicrous amount of money that these schools get paid to come in and then just upset them and pretty much embarrass them on their home turf. I think it's awesome.
Get them in the playoff.
That's what you get.
Get them in the expanded
playoff.
What you get
March Madness in basketball. It's what people tune in for. And in football, at least forever, it's felt like there just haven't really been any of those. The top teams just squash the people they're supposed to. And they got better recruiting, they have better facilities, they have better coaching, blah, 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 blah. And it's an unfair game. And to see some of these teams that are getting paid this ludicrous amount of money to come in and they're supposed to be punching bags, punch back. Oh, it's amazing.
Bob, is that the definition of pay to win?
100%. But as I was shouting when Dennis was going on, get these teams in the college football playoff, because these are the kind of upsets that we haven't had the chance to see on a national stage in primetime big moments. And well, I mean, besides Cincinnati, but they can't be trusted with anything. So, it's time to get a team that, like Marshall, like App State, that with a history of winning, that can come in there and get the job done against these juggernaut programs in the college football playoff.
Bob, is it time for the Sun Belt East to replace the Big Ten West?
Yes. To put it frank.
Yeah, I mean, I'm pretty sure the Big Ten West has like 3 total wins so far this season. There's a bunch of like 0-2 teams, and it's pretty dreadful. The entire Big Ten East is 2-0, and I think Minnesota is the only 2-0 team in the West. So you never know. Maybe the Sun Belt is the next premier conference. Screw the Pac-12. Start bringing in the Sun Belt East, dang it.
That's right.
Forget about expansion. Just start replacing these teams with the Sun Belt East.
Correct. I mean,
it's as simple as that.
Not to mention South Alabama coming in from the Sun Belt West and knocking off CMU at home, and just absolute embarrassment from Kelly Short Stadium. But we don't need to talk about that too much. The only other thing I really want to talk about was Alabama, Texas. Maybe I think Nick Saban's got the refs on the line, because I don't know, some of those calls that went against Texas, they were pretty questionable. Quinn Ewers, if he doesn't get hurt, Texas might pull that off. Bob, is Texas back as a strong Longhorn proponent? Is Texas back?
Yes, especially since they're bringing in none other than the next Manning sensation in a few years. I mean, there's a lot to build. There's a lot to be happy about down there in Texas, and I wish we could have seen that starter go the full game, like you already pointed out. I was tuning in and I was proud of the burnt orange, getting in there. But Nick Saban, we all know the kind of pull he's got. We all know that the kind of back alley deals that are going on. That Affleck money is going right over to the referees. Him and Dion.
Correct.
Dion, another one, down at Jackson State, probably writing a couple checks too, but we don't talk about that. And needless to say, Texas is back. They never left. Sorry.
Dennis, is Texas back?
Yeah, Texas is back. I think Bobby, would I rather have the Affleck money or the Hollings money? I feel like I
think you might rather have the protection of life and property, Dennis.
And
over there at Affleck.
Protection of life and property is incorrect. Nick Saban's raking it in. Absolutely. I mean, I got to be honest. I did not get to watch really any of this game. Just saw the score, so I don't have a ton of comment. But it did seem highly competitive, at least based on what I've read in the box score, and of course the injury to Texas quarterback didn't help things for the Longhorns, and they very well could have walked out with victory.
Welcome, baby.
Here's what I'm going to say. I'm going to agree with you guys. Texas is back to choking football games like they always do, because until Texas actually wins games, they are not back. I don't care if they took Georgia down to the wire. I don't care if they took Alabama, Georgia, and Ohio State all down to the wire in 3 consecutive weeks. If they lose all 3 games, they're still a bunch of losers. So screw Texas, horns down. They're not back. That's all I got to say about that.
Derek, just a pocket Oklahoma fan is what we've learned on this pod.
Absolutely not. Just if it wasn't for Vince Young, Texas would be irrelevant. That's all I got to say.
Derek, is that a Boomer Sooner poster I see in the background over there?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. But if it wasn't for Vince Young, Texas would be irrelevant. That's all I got to say. MSU, Bob, is going to Washington this week. Peyton Thorne has been
A
inconsistent
thorn
at
in our
best.
side.
Inconsistent, maybe mediocre at best, and concerning at worst. Early season predictions, you had this game chalked up as a loss. Washington has been relatively, you know, productive and impressive against bottom feeder competition. Indiana transfer Michael Penix is out there. I believe their current head coach Kalen DeBoer worked on Indiana's staff, and while Michael Penix was still there, the defense has been solid even in the absence of their top 2 or 3 round corners that were drafted last year. How do you see this one playing out, Bob? Is Peyton Thorne finally going to get back on track, or is it time for Noah Kim?
Honestly, that very thought has crossed my mind. That very thought has crossed my mind about Noah Kim. I don't know. It's just you got to ride with Peyton into this one at least. Here's the thing: if Peyton Thorne rights the ship, this team is going to be something to deal with. However, Peyton Thorne has shown very little signs of life so far, and I think he's just from my very untrained eye watching. It looks like he's just trying to force the issue too much. He's just trying too hard, and he's just missing easy throws, forcing it to people where he doesn't need to, instead of just doing what he was good at last year, just not killing yourself and just taking the open read. And then relying on a run game that has proven to be pretty decent so far. So, and then you got a defense that's improved, or has at least looked solid so far. I mean, Akron didn't even Zippy. I'm sorry, we ran through them with a hot knife, and they didn't even get a point on the board, and we still managed to put up 52 points with Peyton Thorne throwing 2 picks and no tubs.
Yeah, let me give some credit to Zippy here. When their starting quarterback was in the game, they were moving up and down the field at will. If they had even 2% better strength, because the way I saw it, MSU was just a stronger, more physical team. And when you have Big Ten versus MAC, it's not always the skill disparity that is, what ends up being these lopsided scores. A lot of it is athleticism and just the sheer strength that Power 5 programs have within their strength and conditioning programs. And you saw it with all the forced turnovers. I mean, Akron just could not hold on to the ball. But when their starting quarterback was in, they got down to the 30-yard line a couple of times. And if it wasn't for his skill position players turning the ball over, I like to think Zippy would have gotten some points on the board. And you guys did win 52-0, but I think 24 of those points came because you turned Zippy over inside their own 35 or 40-yard line. So it's credit to your defense. But at the same time, week one, I'm concerned about Peyton Thorne. I really am. I don't know what happened between last year and this year. I don't know if it's that he has to do more because teams don't have to worry about Kenneth Walker. I mean, Jalen Berger, from what I've seen, has been very good. But it's a little bit of a different beast with the MSU running backs. You got a little bit of a thunder and lightning combo from what I can tell. And so the play action was huge last year for Peyton Thorne. I mean, when Kenneth Walker is a threat to break a 75-yard tub on you every time he touches the ball, you've got to bring guys into the box to stop that. And it seems like defenses this year aren't worried about that as much. And so those plays to go over the top on the play action just haven't been there. And he doesn't have Speedy Naylor running down the sideline 5 yards of separation on guys anymore. So, yeah, I think MSU, I mean, 52 points is 52 points, and you're not going to complain about that. But Peyton Thorne having accounted for 0 points and 2 picks, I think you're spot on with your assessment.
Oh yeah, I was happy we beat Akron obviously, but seeing zero tubs and 2 picks had me cringing a little bit. And
is that going to cut it against UW, Bob? Are the Huskies gonna lay down if Peyton Thorne has that stat line?
Quite frankly, no. And if Peyton Thorne has that stat line, we're going to get blown out by 20 points. And I said it before the season, and I'm not going to change it until I am proved otherwise. I've got this game down as an L for the Spartans. And I didn't really suspect that this would be the storyline going into this. I didn't think that we'd be like Peyton Thorne is, been a disappointment so far. I thought it would be the defense didn't look as good and the run game didn't come along as far as we thought it would, and so now it's Peyton Thorne or nobody. But I'm concerned. I'm very concerned. The defense, like you said, at moments they've shown an affinity to cause turnovers, which I will never complain about. You've always got to give credit for that. But to me, some of that just feels like sloppiness by teams that just aren't on UW's level. And I'm afraid that the well could run dry when we're going to start needing it against better teams. So I would much rather have us, give up, only force one or two turnovers and barely allow them to move the ball at all than, 5 turnovers and have them basically move the ball at will, like you were talking about. But I think this game will be close. I don't think it'll get out of hand. But I think you pointed it out, Derek, and we both kind of alluded to it. I think the difference in the game comes down to if Peyton Thorne shows us, a trip back to the past of last year where, he was throwing bombs down the field, or at least, like I said, above average game manager. Like I said going into the season, if we can get above average game manager play from Peyton Thorne, I think that could be good enough to win. Like you said, we've got some good running backs. That Thunder and Lightning approach has really been doing well for us so far. So, Michael Penix, we've seen him before. Has he struck fear into me in the past? No. But,
I always thought Indiana played you guys tough, no? Am I misremembering?
They always do play us tough. Don't you worry about that. But we've seen him before in the Big Ten. He's not a new commodity to us, at least. So I think UW gets the victory, but I think it's probably within 5 points.
Yeah, UW home favorites, unranked against the top 15 MSU team. I think that says a lot about what Vegas sort of thinks about, especially Peyton Thorne at this point.
Well, I agree. But also, to be fair, Vegas always puts us as such disrespectful lines that it's just grotesque, which is why you should always, not because they're necessarily going to win, but you should always take the points when the Spartans are involved, because they get so disrespected that it's grotesque.
Yeah, Dennis, I won't ask you too much about MSU because I know that's not really your team. I was going to focus more on UC being able to bounce back against the powerhouse that is Kennesaw State after a close week 1 loss. I assume you have another cupcake on the schedule this week. What sort of things did you see out of your Bearcats last week that sort of improved upon some of those, flaws that showed up in the week 1 loss to Arkansas?
It's tough to really provide an assessment when you are just pummeling Kennesaw State, 63-10. If no one tuned into that one, it was an absolute beatdown, which the likes of Notre Dame cannot say. So I'll take it. You don't take anything for granted in sports. That's why they play the game. But no, I thought it was improved. They did a really good job spreading the ball around. Obviously, the defense played really well as well. Ben Bryant started this game again, and then Evan Prater did come in and actually throw for 92 yards at the end in garbage time. So I got him in there as well, which is good to get him a little bit of experience. We can say he has some in-game experience now, even if it was in the the garbage time of a beatdown of Kennesaw State. 4 running backs with touchdowns on the ground. I think the thing that was encouraging for me was just seeing that the playmakers are there and there's depth to this team. And sure, it's Kennesaw State. Is that going to hold up against most other teams? Probably not. But to see so many people get involved and just produce, even against even against a team that isn't necessarily a powerhouse by any means, is encouraging. And I mean, love to see it. It was good to get back on the right track, and now we do get to play the next powerhouse out of the MAC, the Miami Redhawks, Miami, Ohio. That's up this Saturday, and then we go on to the Indiana Hoosiers before that for a Big Ten matchup, which should be should be a good one.
Duty.
Hopefully, give us more of a run for our money than Kennesaw State. But I don't know. Indiana has not necessarily been impressive.
I guess when you got Ben Bryant? I'm sorry, I keep forgetting. When you got Ben Bryant at quarterback, though, I don't know. I might be tempted to put that game as garbage time, take some money and bet on Indiana. I don't know. I'm getting weird feelings over here.
Come on! Don't give me that crap. What has Indiana done this year? Come
on. I think lost.
Lost, right? Probably lost.
I think lost.
Here, I'm pulling it up.
Go ahead. While you're pulling that up, Dennis, I'll do a brief Michigan recap. Hawaii flew 10.5 hours just to get whooped after a lightning delay. Hate to see it. But the main takeaway from that game, J.J. McCarthy, QB1, moving forward. Like I said last week, I thought the QB competition was more of a formality to give Cade McNamara a chance as the returning starter, as a Big Ten champion, as the guy who beat Ohio State, as the guy who took us to the college football playoff. Harbaugh gave him a chance in week 1 to show why he deserved to remain the starter, left the door open. J.J. McCarthy, week 2, came in 11 of 12, would have been perfect if not for a drop pass. They weren't necessarily the hardest throws, but I've seen plenty of Michigan quarterbacks in the past miss all of those easy throws, overthrow guys who are wide open, streaking for free touchdowns towards the end zone. So he made all of the plays, made plays on the ground with his legs, didn't put himself in harm's way, took the checkdowns when he had them. And like Jim Harbaugh said, by merit, J.J. McCarthy won the job and will be the starter week 3 against the powerhouse that is UConn. Jim Mora back in the college football coaching ranks. And JJ will be the QB1 next week and moving forward. Bob, a lot of MSU fans like to make fun of JJ for quote-unquote fumbling the game away last year, as if Kenneth Walker didn't just run all over our defense. Does JJ McCarthy worry you, or have you not yet seen enough beating up on cupcakes to really get a good read on it?
I think the athletic ability of JJ McCarthy does concern me more than that of what Cade McNamara may have had at his disposal. However, I can't ignore the tape, and the tape from JJ against big time opposition has been shaky to say the least.
He wasn't shaky against Ohio State.
Well, he was shaky against us. So, here's the thing. For me, as a onlooker of the Michigan program, and maybe most Michigan fans won't feel this way, but I feel like, for me, if this season ends up being, some sort of a disappointment, which for Michigan at this point would be darn near losing like 2 games, because
correct,
most of the games on the schedule, like you've outlined already in our previous pods, you have chalked up as wins, and you really have no other reason to think otherwise. For me, it's gonna be a question of, would Cade McNamara have got the job done? I mean, like you just listed, this guy's got the accolades. He may not have been the whole reason why the team made it to that point, but they did make it to that point, and he was at the helm. And so, by what your estimation is a more beatable Ohio State team this season, or at least it appears so, maybe early.
As beatable. They're as beatable as last year.
As beatable, but maybe they'll prove to be more beatable as the season goes on. Especially if they don't get the job done in that game. I mean, that's going to have me wondering if Cade maybe was just had something that JJ didn't for that big moment. But I'm definitely, I remember at points before calling for JJ to come in. I think he's, like I said, the more athletically gifted, and I think if he puts it all together for you guys, he's going to be a lot more dangerous than Cade could have been. But you got to tip your hat to Cade, as you have before. I'm not being unfair to you. You've definitely showed Cade his love, but I mean, it's just tough as an onlooker to believe that the competition was an open competition, like, at all, given the fact that the guy had just gone to the college football playoff, had just won the Big Ten, had just beat Ohio State in so many years, and now they're coming in and replacing them the next year. Like, sure, they gave him a chance, but, like, why was there even a chance given? I mean, come on.
Well, I'm glad you asked the question, Bob, because I've seen this float around all the message boards too, saying that Harbaugh led Cade on, thinking he would be the starter, this and that. JJ was hurt for a good portion of spring camp, that lingered on through the summer a little bit, and so a lot of the work that Cade was getting done, JJ was sidelined for quite some time. And so when the quarterback battle, sort of began, as we started creeping closer towards the beginning of the season, JJ was still, maybe not to anyone's surprise, coming off an injury, still a little bit behind Cade. But as the season got closer, dude locked in. And so I would think that if JJ had had a full spring, a full summer, and stayed healthy throughout the whole thing, my guess is there wouldn't have been a competition that lingered on into the regular season, and JJ would have won it outright. But because he started off a little bit behind, it sort of put Harbaugh in this position to have to sort of have this open competition. But I will say this. Like I said, I gave Cade his flowers. At the same time, I need to give the number one offensive line in the country last year their flowers, and Hassan Haskins his flowers for running all over Ohio State, and the Michigan defense their flowers for being one of the top 5 defenses in the country. A lot of people on Twitter say that Michigan won in spite of Cade. I wouldn't go that far. Yeah, I wouldn't go that far to say that it was the rest of the team elevating themselves to make up for Cade's shortcomings. I thought he did good when he had to, but at the same time, he has a very limited ceiling. And the one thing that separated him from JJ last year was not only experience and time in the system, but decision making. And this year he came out and in back-to-back games threw 2 interceptions. The second one against Hawaii was abysmal, trying to force the ball downfield, maybe feeling a little bit of pressure to step up and try and save his job, and just made a horrible decision. So to me, you run the risk that Michigan fans have done for a long time of clamoring for the next guy. First it was, Wilton Spate wasn't good enough, give us John O'Corn. And it was John O'Corn is terrible, give us Shea Patterson. And it was Shea Patterson is terrible, give us Joe Milton. Joe Milton's terrible, give us Dylan McCaffrey. Dylan McCaffrey's concussed, and we went back to Joe Milton, give us Cade McNamara. And now, the cycle's completed itself again, and J.J. McCarthy's the guy. But the difference between J.J. McCarthy and all the guys I've listed previously, he's the only 5-star in that group. Dennis, do you have any thoughts on the QB situation in Michigan? And, I know we're not really your team, but I didn't want to leave you out of the discussion.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I mean, I definitely don't have too much to add. I'm kind of with Bobby, I think, along the lines of it did feel like this decision was pretty much made. Maybe that was just a little bit because of, my only peek really behind the curtain of Michigan football is Derek. And so, hearing him talk about how, this really should be, the ball needs to be taken out of Cade's hands in this case. But yeah, I mean, it seems like Harbaugh's got the guy he wants, and for better or for worse, that's what you're going to be rolling with. And he looked good. I mean, everything that I saw, he looked good, and so yeah. I mean, I don't have anything else.
Like Bob talking about how nice of a ball Justin Herbert throws, JJ throws a nice ball. I do have some Indiana scores for you. Indiana 2-0. They picked up a week. They have not undefeated Indiana. They beat Illinois 23-20.
And then after trailing 10-0 at halftime, rally in the third quarter for a 35-22 defeat of the Idaho. You guys know who the University of Idaho mascot?
The Vandals.
The Vandals, the Idaho Vandals. 35-22 Indiana 2-0. They could be a force coming out of Bloomington this year.
Oh, give me a break. I forgot
Derek.
that Indiana's in the Big Ten East, and I said all the Big Ten East teams were 2-0. That's how irrelevant I think of it.
Derek, is it time to get feisty and lay lumber on Indiana when they play Cincinnati? I think it could be.
I mean, it very well could be. But yeah, one last thing. Michigan fans, stop booing Cade McNamara. That was classless and pathetic. Screw you. You're not a true Michigan fan if you booed Cade.
There was booing?
They booed Cade
booing
McNamara when he came in for JJ.
That's
in
not
the game
shocking
against
at all. Actually,
yeah.
That's stupid.
From what I could tell, it was a very small minority, probably a lot of drunk students, and some goobers. But yeah, I didn't think that was very cool. Even though I've been a pretty vocal JJ supporter, it's not how you treat a guy that won you a Big Ten championship, regardless of how much you thought he played a role in that. But yeah, moving on to college and into the NFL. I guess we'll start with our teams. Dennis, we'll start with you with the Bengals. Disappointing, to say the least, season opener. Joe Burrow didn't play. Did he play all in the preseason?
No, and that's one of the things I was going to talk about is Joe Burrow.
Take it away.
Did not look good. I mean, I'm just going to say it. He didn't look good. 5 turnovers, 4 picks, and a fumble. What are we counting? 4 picks. Yeah. It didn't look good. I do think that part of it is, as we just laid out, 0 preseason snaps. It did not play at all in the preseason. He had his card out there running laps with the team or whatever. That doesn't do you anything. And so he's just a little rusty. I mean, that was a big part of it. In my mind was he just looked rusty and a little slower than we're used to seeing Joe Burrow. And obviously he was laid up with the appendectomy, so he just hasn't been running around to the amount that you would want your quarterback practicing and getting out there to get ready for a season. He just hasn't been doing it. So, I was telling somebody this. I said this felt like preseason week 1 for Joe Burrow. I hope we don't have to go through weeks 2 and 3. We can jump to the regular season next week against Dallas. And, a lot of people this game was wild. Absolutely insane down at Paycor Stadium. Overtime, also nuts. We had there's a lot to process. A couple things I wanted to get to real quick. You could say that the offensive line, like Joe Burrow got sacked 7 times. But you know what? If you dig into it and if you actually watch the game, those were also kind of Joe Burrow's fault. He did not get the ball. I mean,
if you read my article on the Garbage Time Takes website, please check it out. I did mention that the Bengals offensive line, according to the advanced analytics, was responsible for only 4 out of the 7 sacks. I think Joe Burrow had a sack that was he slid basically right behind the line of scrimmage and had 2 other sacks that either were chalked up to him or the running backs not picking up responsibilities. But yes, the Bengals offensive line only responsible for 4 sacks, but 4 sacks would still also be 4 too many, I think.
For sure. But I mean, that's interesting that they had that advanced statistic. What I was going to throw out there was pressure percentage. He was pressured on 21.5%, which was 22nd. Bottom 3rd in the NFL was Joe Burrow pressured. Half of them were sacks. So he's not getting the number of sacks that he took compared relatively to the amount of percentage of times that he was pressured. You shouldn't get sacked that many times. You should get way less
Correct.
than 7. Even if you want to say 6, 2 maybe. You could say 3 even, I guess. But I mean, he basically got sacked twice as many times as you'd expect for the approximate amount of pressure he was under. And so that's, to me anyway, simply holding on to the ball a little too long. And you can kind of see that, and that plays into him being rusty, not playing the preseason, all that kind of stuff. Did the offensive line play great and look, unstoppable? No, by no means. But I do think that they're improved, and I don't expect Joe Burrow to have a performance like that again. It was very uncharacteristic And I'm not concerned about it because I have faith that he will be and will return to the Joe Burrow that we know. And if that's the case, and the line is actually improved, then I have no concerns about that.
I mean, he won it for you. I mean, Joe Burrow won it for you, led the drive at the end of the fourth quarter, time
He did.
expires.
I mean, how many times did we have to score for it to actually count there? How many touchdowns did Jamar have to catch?
I mean, when it mattered most, he ended up coming through, but unfortunately, special teams didn't do their job, let Minkah Fitzpatrick come in unblocked, and he blocks the extra point, and then another special teams miscue. Your long snapper, I think, like tore his biceps or something crazy, and then your holder laces in, and you know the rule about laces being out for kickers, and they weren't on that field goal, and that one was missed as well. So just some small
That's the perfect
miscues.
setup. It's the
Hmm.
perfect setup to what I want to go into next. And Bobby, you also feel free to jump in at any point because I don't want to dominate completely this segment. But this is what I was so upset about after finishing that game last Sunday. Is our long snapper Clark Harris gets hurt, has to leave the game. We bring in now doing long snapping is some guy I don't even know his first name. His last name is Wilcox. Literally don't know what he does, just a special teamer. And on the blocked PAT by Minkah, it was an incredibly slow snap that took forever to get to
Yeah.
Kevin Huber, which allowed Minkah the time to get through some blocks and block the PAT that might not have otherwise been blocked. And then it was also the backup long snapper's fault on it was a high snap that Huber had to get down and didn't have time to turn the laces for
Hmm.
McPherson. And so the whole operation was just thrown off. And do I blame Wilcox? Absolutely not. I blame Zach Taylor. I blame Zach Taylor and the Bengals coaching staff because how in the world do you not have anybody else on a 53-man roster who can snap a football 7 yards? Nobody.
Bob,
was
you're
infuriated.
not in your head.
Well, because I heard
One man who can do that?
I heard Dennis's reaction right after the game. Now, I will say he's giving us the PG version of what he said after the game because there would be
control.
I'd have to get the bleep button out for what was occurring then. However,
yeah, we've had some time to process.
I hate to pour salt in the wound here, but I'm going to do it because I am, as Dennis says, fair and objective in my analysis. But I said regression was coming for the Bengals, and boy was I right, because week one strikes again. Week one strikes again, and the Pittsburgh Steelers. That Mike Tomlin just cannot. Dennis, you were supposed to make sure. What did I say going into the season? There's no way the Pittsburgh Steelers get to 500 this season, and you're letting them start out 1-0. And you got to play him again.
It sickens me.
You better hope that your long snapper is better by then and gets a bicep reattached because there's going to be trouble. And
yeah, no, I'm with you. It's infuriating.
Dennis, who's the backup quarterback on the roster right now for the Bengals?
It's Brandon Allen. It's Brandon Allen, who we just re-signed in the offseason.
I hope he's
to be back up to Joe Burrow.
Warming up on the sideline because, good Lord have mercy, 5 turnovers.
I mean,
5 turnovers.
I'm not worried about that. But yeah, here's the thing:
you didn't deserve to win the game.
We turned the ball over 5 times.
You didn't deserve to win the game.
Couldn't make a kick because our long snapper was hurt, and we still almost won / tied.
Yeah, I mean, Shooter McPherson sending him over to the next county over, shaking him so badly. I mean, I saw so many memes online that it was just. You would have been sick, Dennis. I'm sure you probably were sick.
Yeah, well, memes don't tell the whole story, Bobby. Memes don't help. Memes don't tell the whole story.
True. And I also I'm glad that we kind of got to this point because I believe I've been on this point for a while, but I'm glad it's rearing its head again. Joe Burrow needs to get rid of the football. I understand his line has been poor, but when you have the amount of sacks that you had as the Cincinnati Bengals last season, you got professional linemen out there. There's no way you're getting sacked that many times unless you're holding on to the ball a little bit too long. Now, was the line pathetic? Yes, the line was pathetic. But I think people, because they liked Joe Burrow's story and because, he was this big character, they're kind of glossing over the fact that, the guy was holding on to the ball a little bit too long. And, it happens. A lot of quarterbacks do that. But let's just tell it like it is. Joe needs to get the ball out quick. quicker, and he's got the weapons to do it. I suspect he'll tone it in to not the tune of 4 interceptions next week, like you said, Dennis. However, I'm concerned. I'm concerned, but to be fair to you, Dennis, I was concerned before the season, so nothing's really changed for me.
Yeah,
No,
Dennis,
I'm with you on the whole. Go ahead.
I'm with you, Dennis. I'm not concerned. I think this was a big win for those who say the preseason matters. We didn't only see it in this game.
Absolutely.
The Rams-Bills game, first half, very rusty for both teams in that first half, especially the Rams. Stafford didn't play a single preseason snap. Packers, I don't think Aaron Rodgers played very much this preseason, and the Packers were terrible against Minnesota. So I think you're right, Dennis. Joe Burrow really turned it around in that fourth quarter, and he became the Joe Burrow that we know and think he is. So I'm definitely not concerned, especially with. I will be concerned if you lose to Dallas next week, because there are very few teams in the NFL that should lose to Dallas next week. Believe me, I love Cooper Rush and want him to succeed as much or more as almost any other quarterback in this league as a Central Michigan University Chippewa alum. But he is not an NFL starting quarterback caliber. And if you lose to this Dallas team and the state that they're in, then it's DEFCON 1. But I think Cincinnati is the far better team. I think Cincinnati should win this game with or without Dak Prescott on the field. So I'm with you. I think this was preseason week 1, and I think from here on out, the sailing should be smoother.
Yeah, I'm absolutely gotta have faith that they're going to be able to take care of Dallas with the state that franchise is in. I'll finish up my thoughts with one last thing. 23 points for Pittsburgh. You had the overtime field goal. Take that out. Pick 6. The other 3 scoring drives, they started on the Pittsburgh 41, the Cincinnati 45, and the Cincinnati 34. Can't win football games that way.
Correct. Yeah, got to at least be promising signs for your defense. That was much maligned
defense looked
last
great.
year, especially in the secondary.
I mean, that drive that started on our 34 was a field goal. And that's just one example. They looked really good. Didn't get the turnovers that Pittsburgh's defense did, which is, one of the many differences in this game. But they looked good. They did not break. And, they're you turn the ball over 5 times, you expect to get blown out. And so, sure, is Pittsburgh's offense the most dominant? And did they look great? No. But a lot of credit to the Bengals defense, and I have faith that hopefully Cooper Rush will not pose too much of a threat, as much as I also love Cooper Rush and Fire Up Chips.
Yeah. Speaking of pick sixes, Jared Goff threw one of his own that ultimately led to Philadelphia scoring 21 straight points and putting the Lions in an early hole, and what ended up being a 38-35 defeat for the Motor City Kitties in week 1 at a very raucous Ford Field. How about that Ford Field environment, Bob? But another, Derek prediction, spot on, absolutely nailed it. Kudos to myself. Let me take a bow real quick. Just couldn't, like I said, the things that separate playoff teams from the Lions are the little things. The Lions did not do the little things in week 1 this week. Hopefully they will throughout the rest of the season, but they showed, like I said, no moral victories in football. But they were competitive with a team that's largely thought to be the NFC East favorite, which obviously makes them a playoff team. The Lions are right there, but until they clean up those little mistakes, they're not going to be able to jump into the next tier. Bob, you put an article out, about why 6 wins isn't going to be enough for the Lions. We've talked extensively about how there are many winnable games on the schedule this year. And it starts next week with Washington. But before we get into that, I just wanted to see what you had to say about the Lions' week 1 defeat to Philadelphia. Disappointing, I think, is a very strong word here. I don't know if you have any others.
A few of my own, yes. It's sad because this is like, I wanted to win so badly, but I said, more than likely what's going to happen is exactly what happened, and that makes me more irritated than anything. Because, to be honest, Detroit should have won this football game. And that was the irritating part. Is because, if the Eagles went out there and outclassed us in every stage of the game and proved that they are a team that was NFC championship contenders, as some people thought of them as, okay, I'll bow my hat, I'll just accept it. I would have been mad because I thought the Lions could have been better, but you know what? I would have understood. But that wasn't the case in this ball game. The Detroit Lions, and I'd like to say that it's little things that get us, and to some extent it is, because we kept this game tough. But when is the defense ever gonna learn how to tackle fundamentally? Derek,
That's the little things.
Derek, how many years?
Things I'm talking.
Derek, how many years have we come on here and it's just a failure to wrap up? You learned how to do that in 4th grade. Okay, I need somebody to show me that they made it to the NFL and know how to wrap up when you've got a guy dead to rights in the backfield. Okay, that's basically the difference in this ball game, and that's the sad thing. I mean, Jared Goff, he had that one pick, and here's the thing: I expect that from Jared Goff. It's okay. Jared Goff he's an average quarterback. He's not anything special, and that's fine. He's gonna throw a pick a game, and it's gonna happen. But you know what? Jared Goff also made some plays that got us into this game, and that's
scored 35 points.
Exactly, and that's the moral of the story. If we can put up 35 points on a weekly basis against a defense that I don't think anybody's slouching at in the Eagles, we're gonna be fine. We're gonna be fine.
You're gonna win a lot more games than you lose scoring 35 points.
We got to tackle somebody, okay?
True.
But here's the thing. Here's a couple of takeaways briefly, and then we'll move on to this upcoming matchup with the Commanders. Number 1, the pass rush is not there yet. Number 2, which is concerning considering that we've tried to address that. And number 2, can we tackle anybody? Number 3, if we face a immobile quarterback, which we are next week, we should take him to Pound Town, because if it weren't for Jalen Hurts getting out of the pocket about 60 times this game, we would have had this game wrapped up and we'd have started 1-0. And I think that, like I said in the article about why we need to get the job done and why 6 wins isn't enough, is that the hype behind this team and the hype behind that game was so immense that it just seemed like they owed us one, and like we said, there's no moral victories. It just felt like they owed us one big win to start off the season, considering how I've discussed in previous pods, how every time we have a big game early in the season, they do this exact same spiel. They keep it, they falter around. They keep it close to the end of the game. Normally it's the refs that screw us, so at least we didn't have that happen. But
we had one screw job. Well,
that's true. No,
the intentional grounding that led to an eventual touchdown, but
correct. But normally we have much more blatant screw jobs than this. However, we just 3 points. I mean, come on. To be honest, a lot of people. I'll touch on this and then we'll move on to the Commanders. A lot of people talk about that onside kick. I don't give a rat's bleep about the onside kick. It's the Detroit freaking Lions. We're playing to win. What do we have to lose? What do we have to lose? And that's my mentality every week with the Lions. I mean, sure, we're an improved team, but here's the thing: we're never playing scared. And as long as Dan Campbell, keeps that mentality going forward, that's going to benefit us more than it's going to hurt us. And hey, if that onside kick works, we're looking like geniuses. So. And especially with the success rate that we had on onside kicks last year, at least we're keeping every team honest, which by the end of the season will work out in our favor. Go ahead, Derek.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up the onside kick. A lot of people were on Dan Campbell for that, and as I wrote in my most recent article, feel free to check that out again, people, on the Garbage Time Takes website. I did not have a problem with the onside kick. Our defense couldn't stop a nosebleed.
Sieve.
Philadelphia was running the ball at will. They were converting on 3rd down.
And
Dan Campbell said, you know what? If we score a touchdown here, I feel real good about my offense. All we need is one stop for the defense, and I think we can match points with Philadelphia the rest of the way. And sure enough, the offense did their job, and the defense just could not get off the field enough times when it mattered most. They had plenty of opportunities on Philadelphia's last drive to get the job done and didn't. They came up with two big stops in the middle of the fourth quarter to get the ball back in the offense's hands. But at that time, late in the third quarter, we couldn't stop anyone. And so I agree. I didn't have a problem with the onside kick. Mark Schlereth, the bozo that he is, was talking about how we were letting momentum swing right back to Philadelphia. What advantage do we have to Philadelphia scoring an 80-yard touchdown drive compared to a 49-yard touchdown drive? In fact, I think that's more beneficial because it gives your offense a chance to get the ball back quicker and score again, even if Philadelphia does score again. If they burn off a 7-minute drive and score a touchdown anyway, I'd rather have those extra 4.5 minutes to try and make those points back. But I will say that I don't think it's a strategy that the Lions should need to utilize throughout the rest of the season. We're an improved team, and so I would hope that we're defending more onside kicks than attempting.
Agreed.
But I think I will never, be mad at aggressive play calls from Dan Campbell, because for far too long I watched Lions teams.
Yep.
I watched too many Lions teams that when it came down to crunch time, let the game come to them rather than going and taking it for themselves. So I was fine with the play call. If I see it, every other week throughout the rest of the season, I might get a little concerned that Dan Campbell doesn't have enough faith in the defense to get stops, which that would be a concern. But in week one, when you're trying to really capitalize on the momentum and maybe you get the ball back and score another 7 quick points, who knows what happens. But yeah, just that and missed tackles killed us. Aiden Hutchinson had a number of opportunities, couldn't come up with them. Defensive line. I don't think you said the pass rush. I think the pass rush was decent, but the problem was they just weren't making the plays. We were pressuring Jalen Hurts, which we didn't generate any pressure last year. You basically could pitch a tent, as Bob always likes to say, and start fishing with how much time quarterbacks had last year. At least in week one, we brought some blitzes. We actually generated some pressure. Problems is guys see the quarterback and want to go make a play rather than holding down their assignment, and you lose contain and he goes off running.
Yeah, especially when you're playing 4 defensive ends, and all our D linemen for a majority of the packages, as we talked about, are defensive ends.
Correct. Yeah, so I think that segues really nicely. Like I said, I don't really have too much more to add. I think Bob covered a lot of it. But credit to the offense in the fourth quarter. They really came alive, and Jared Goff made some really, really, really nice throws. It's amazing how he can look like a JV quarterback one night and a Hall of Famer the next drive. But you just can't have 3 3-and-outs back to back to back to back and then throw a pick six. But if you told me we were going to score 35 points a game the rest of the season, I definitely take that. So just got to clean up some of those other things. But like I said, Washington next week, Carson Wentz not nearly as much of a threat on the ground as Jalen Hurts. They do have, I would say their skill positions are a little bit better. I'd say their receiving trio of McLaurin, Jahan Dotson, and Curtis Samuel probably trumps that. A.J. Brown's really good, but Devontae Smith was catchless, and the Eagles I don't really think have a third receiver. So Washington's receivers, they got a bit of a trio that's pretty nice. Antonio Gibson can be hit or miss. Washington offensive line, I think, is pretty decent, but this is really going to come down to walk it to him when Bob. And if the Lions can force just a little bit of pressure and get him a little bit rattled, I think this could be a cakewalk.
Derek, loss here is DEFCON 1. Absolute DEFCON 1 if we lose this game. I said week 1 it felt like a must-win. Week 2 is a must-win. We've got to have Washington. Is
it a must-win or a can't lose?
Well, with the Lions,
one question.
I never really know how to put it semantically. Can't lose, I guess. If we're the favorites, can't lose, I guess. But you just got to get it done. Like I've pointed out and you said, comes down to the quarterback, Carson Wentz. And the beautiful thing about Carson Wentz is that he's just not as mobile as Jalen Hurts. So pin your ears back and go get him, all right? I want to see Aiden Hutchinson got his first sack of the season next week. It should have came last week on a number of occasions, but it didn't happen. Now here's what I'm concerned about. I'm concerned that now that we've had a 35-point explosion for the offense, we're going to have an absolute bedwetting fest this coming week. But you know what? I've got high hopes for the Lions. I'm going to keep my hopes high. I think we get the job done. But like I said, if this doesn't happen, if it doesn't happen next week, I'm going to have to start asking when is it going to happen, and you don't want to see me when that happened, when that's going, because if we lose next week, I'm going to find a brown paper bag and it's coming back out because it's warranted at that point.
Yeah, Bob, here's the thing. Last week, I was against you. I didn't think we'd be able to pull it off. I thought there were a few things that separated the Eagles from us, and I happened to be right. This week, I think the Lions should win this game. I was saying if they opened as underdogs, you should hammer them. They're currently favored for the first time in a game since 2020. 24 straight underdogs the Lions were until this coming Sunday, assuming the line holds. The last time we were favorites, we were shut out against Carolina and P.J. Walker in the Matt Patricia era. That was an absolute disaster. I don't think Stafford played. But
that's just what I want to hear.
This Washington team is not going to have Chase Young. Now, they do have Montez Sweat and a couple of other guys on that defensive line that are pretty solid. But I don't think their secondary is as good as Philadelphia's. I don't think their linebackers are as good as Philadelphia's. I think our offense is really, really good. I think our running game is a strong point. I mean, we ran
all over them.
In the same way that Philadelphia ran at will against us, we were able to open plenty of holes. DeAndre Swift, 144 yards. It used to be a novelty when a Lions running back went for 100 yards, and now it's sort of expected, which is unheard of since Barry Sanders. So this is an offense that I think does have the capabilities to score 35-plus points a game every single week. I mean, we're paying them as such.
Yep.
Little bit concerning, offensive line injuries starting to creep up. Frank Ragnow hasn't practiced all week. Hal Vaitai on IR with back surgery. Jonah Jackson was held out of practice today with a finger injury. Taylor Decker, I think, was a limited participant, which leaves Penei Sewell is the only guy who's been healthy all week. I imagine the rest of the line will play and everything will be fine. But it is a shame where we finally thought we were going to get all five guys on the offensive line to start together, and before week one even hit, it didn't work out. But here's the thing. Next man up. This is NFL football. These guys are professionals, and we got to find a way to make it work, and I think we will. Carson Wentz doesn't scare me. And Washington, we've beaten them 4 out of the last 5 times. And so I think it's 5 out of the next 6. And, for me, it's can't lose territory. When I think about this game, I say, we just can't lose this game. We can't lose this game. And so give me the Lions here. Dennis, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, you guys covered it really well. I think my big takeaway from last week was what we were just talking about, but from at least the way I saw it is just Jalen Hurts just looked good, athletic. I mean, he was just exactly like Bobby said, you bring in the pressure and he just was faster. Just scrambled and picked up 5 yards, 6 yards, and that was really a difference in the game. I mean, he did that like a million times. And so him just being able to get outside of the pocket and make a couple plays, it's unfortunate that the defense wasn't able to make plays, but you also do got to give some credit to Jalen Hurts for making plays in times that they really needed it. Looking at this game, I'm with both of you guys. I think there's a reason that Detroit's favored because, and I think I talked about this last week, at least I saw enough, and I think that a lot of people saw enough to say, okay, this offense is really good. Obviously, the offensive line injuries are starting to mount up, which is a concern. And, of course, Washington won last week as well, but we're talking about Carson Wentz here. And I mean, they had to come back on Jacksonville, right? I think.
Yeah, they had to come back.
Yeah, and sure that could happen again. I think they're going to be in too big a hole to come back this week against Detroit. I mean, it's
Love the
the big
optimism,
issue that I
Dennis.
saw. Well, that's the thing, though, and it feeds just into what I was saying about Jalen Hurts. The big reason that I felt like the Lions dropped this game was because Jalen Hurts is mobile. Carson Wentz is not mobile, and I think that the ability to contain him and have some defensive success should be higher. And given that, if you're putting up 35 points, uh, that's going to win a football game, 100%.
Yeah. Bob, any other thoughts on the Lions going into another home game? Got to win this one. Just got to win.
I'm gonna be acting a fool next week if we do not win this game. I mean, if the Lions and MSU lose next week, I mean, I just might not even show up. I mean, golly.
We'll have to get the backgrounds ready. We'll get the background ready for Bob.
Oh no. Let's not even put that into the universe. A couple other games that I just wanted to touch on. The Packers. Justin Jefferson is him. Justin Jefferson is him. Kirk Cousins did what Kirk Cousins always does, and that's be consistently above average, nothing more, nothing less. The Vikings took care of business rather easily against Green Bay. Dennis, is Green Bay dead?
No, I definitely don't think Green Bay's dead. I mean, me and Bobby were talking about this pre-pod. I mean, you have the Christian Watson dropped 75-yard bomb, walk-in touchdown. I mean, it's just the rookie receivers. Obviously, Rodgers doesn't quite have the trust there with them yet. This game didn't help that. But I think as the season goes along, you'll see that start to develop, especially if they get Allen Lazard back, who just got like stepped on or something. And then, really credit to Minnesota in this one. Unfortunately, because I do like him as a coach, I think this is it showed a little bit that Mike Zimmer was holding back Minnesota, and the way that this new regime is utilizing Justin Jefferson, getting him in motion in space with the ball in his hands, making plays, he looked fantastic. I mean, it was like a completely new level had been unlocked on the talent that is Justin Jefferson. So, yeah, Green Bay, I'm not all that concerned. RELAX, relax. Aaron Rodgers, I'm sure will say it, and maybe they'll have a little bit of a rough stretch to open the season. Definitely not going to win out or anything like that, but it's still a good football team.
Bob, earlier our preseason predictions, we weren't really that high on Minnesota. Did this game change your perspective on either Green Bay or Minnesota?
Yes, it did, but I would say it changed my perspective more on Green Bay than it did on Minnesota. I would say that I'm very concerned for Green Bay. Especially when you have Aaron Rodgers going out there talking a fool, as he's been, just absolutely slamming and throwing his receivers under the bus. I mean, no wonder they're not making plays for him because he doesn't...
There was bus throwing.
Because this guy's just, I mean, who would want to play for this guy? I mean, anytime you miss one assignment and he's going to throw you to the wolves in the national media because of the holier-than-thou mentality, the Detroit Lions better put these cheeseheads in their place this season at least once, or I'm going to barf. And the Vikings, here's the thing. I want Kirk Cousins to be successful. I do. I don't know. There's something in my stomach that says.
No, Bobby doesn't want Minnesota to succeed, so that my hot take for Minnesota this season doesn't come true. That's what.
Here's the thing. I don't care if Minnesota wins the Super Bowl as long as the Detroit Lions beat them 2 times. That's all I can care. I can care less about that.
That's fair.
So, you know what?
I'm with you, Bob. There's always something about Minnesota. There's always something about Minnesota that doesn't quite feel like you can put all your eggs in the Minnesota basket.
Yes, that's it.
I'm with you. But I do think they impressed me more than I thought they were. I didn't expect, them to win and sort of dominate in the way they did. I know Justin Jefferson is good because I made sure to select him as a keeper in my fantasy football league. But he's a matchup nightmare. And the Lions, got torched by him last year. And, I still think they can split because Minnesota's Minnesota, and there's always some sort of thing there with
That's
them.
what I like to hear, Derek.
But I'm with Dennis. There's a part of me that just can't count Aaron Rodgers out yet. I'm going to need a couple more games before I really say, man, this Green Bay team is in trouble. Because I remember how bad they looked last year. Another point I made on the Garbage Time Takes website in my most recent article, how bad they looked last year against New Orleans. And then they won, 13 games, 14 games, number one seed in the NFC, something ridiculous like that, one or two. So until Aaron Rodgers shows me that, he's just not going to be able to elevate the rest of his wide receivers, I can't count him out quite yet. But by week 4 and they're only 500, week 5, maybe they're 2-3. We'll see, but I'm with Dennis. I won't count him out just yet. But yeah, the Buccaneers-Cowboys game, I guess we can talk on that briefly since we sort of preluded it. And the Bengals-Cowboys matchup that we were talking about, Dak Prescott is going to be out for a while, going to need surgery on his thumb. It's amazing what an accidental high five can do to a quarterback's hand, but it's a cruel world. Tampa Bay, Brady looked like he didn't play very much in the preseason. And there's another example of preseason matters. But the Cowboys, Bob, can you give the Cowboys fans any hope?
Just wait for the upcoming segments. Just wait for the upcoming segments, and there'll be plenty of hope.
Okay.
There'll be plenty of hope to be given from Cowboys fans. However, that being said, unless some of these skill position players start showing up for Dallas, I mean, I know the quarterback play was not good either, but the defense is just not. And I know a lot of Dallas fans have been saying the defense is going to carry them as far as they're going to go. The defense it's all right. They played Brady tough.
19 points. They held Tampa Bay to 19 points.
They played Brady tough, but I don't know. I'm not buying it. I'm not sold. And this offense is just going to make it increasingly hard for them to succeed, putting them back on the field, putting them in tough spots, I predict. But I got a little rabbit up my sleeve coming in these later segments. So,
okay, Dennis, what do you think?
I mean, I've got some stuff I'll save for later too.
Okay, we're just gonna save it for later then. A couple other games. Bears 49ers. Is the Trey Lance era going to be over sooner rather than later? What do you guys think? Is Jimmy G going to make a triumphant return here pretty soon?
I mean, for me, one of my hot takes before the season started was, and I do have this in writing somewhere, that Jimmy G would throw for more passing yards this season somewhere, maybe San Fran, maybe not, than Trey Lance. And I think that we're on our way to that potentially, but I don't think you can read too much into this. I think Trey Lance is getting absolutely slammed in national media for not performing in a monsoon against. I mean, that game was sloppy. I almost want to throw it out. Like that game was kind of disgusting. I don't think you can read too much into it. It's just not what you're going to get for week in and week out football. Definitely didn't look good, but keep in mind also, this is a guy who hasn't played football and barely has played football in the last 3 years. He's played
Correct.
A handful of games and out of a small school, and now is just expected to be some sort of MVP candidate. The expectations are ridiculous. And
sounds like a bust to me, Bobby. I mean, why pick him that high if he's going to be trash?
I mean, when you're not even picking out a Division I school, I mean, that's when you should start to be concerned a little bit there. He only got one season under his belt, as I recall. But here's what I'm irritated about. The Bears are 1-0.
Yeah, that was my other.
That's disgusting.
Come
That was the
on,
other
Derek.
thing I was going to bring up.
Come
Bob,
on.
did the Bears scare you? Do 19 points scare
No.
you? Does Justin Fields scare
No,
you?
but this is exactly. I hope somebody read my article, because this is exactly what I was talking about with being concerned about the Bears. Because Detroit has the 5th easiest schedule this season, and guess who has the 4th? The Bears. So if we're going to finish above them in the North, we cannot have them winning games that they shouldn't be winning against the 49ers, which is a team that they weren't expected to beat at all. So,
Correct.
good.
Just irritating.
Come
Agreed.
on. I mean, they're doing slip and slides on the field, celebrating the fact that Trey Lance can't do anything. No, and to answer your Jimmy G question, no, they're not going to put Jimmy G back in. You can't put Jimmy. You got to wait a while before you put Jimmy G back in, because if you do
What week? What week? If the 49ers are 1-3 going into week 5, you put Jimmy G back in?
No,
No?
week 10 minimum.
Dennis?
Because
what?
Jimmy
Go ahead,
G
Bob.
is just better.
Go ahead,
I mean,
Bob.
I don't have any apprehensions about Jimmy G being better than Trey Lance at the given moment. I don't. But if you're going to draft this guy and mortgage your future, you can't just then pull him out like 2 games after putting him in. That's going to, I mean, he's already rusty. Now you're going to blow his confidence out by yanking him out of yanking him like 3 games into the season. I mean, what kind of faith did that show? You're already going to hand over the keys to the franchise, and then now you're just going to bench him 3 weeks in? I mean, come on. That's ridiculous. And if they do choose to do that, I mean, it just really shows how bad they botched this whole scenario. I mean,
Dennis,
you had another year Jimmy G. You didn't have to rush him in.
It's valid, and I am basically thinking the same thing as Bobby here. I don't know why he's starting in the first place. I mean, so that's my take on it. I mean, Jimmy G took you to the conference championship game a year ago, and then he just gets benched for Trey Lance. I mean, I know he's not a world beater, Jimmy G, but he is at this time he's the better quarterback, and let Trey Lance sit behind him. They obviously have chosen not to do that, and that decision was made a while ago. And so here we are. I don't know that they're going to, go back on that decision and be like, oh, well, we kind of made a mistake, and so we're going to ruin the kid's confidence, like Bobby said. But if they want to win football games, they might. I mean, that's going to be pressure, because you're going to be stuck between that and winning. And so, what ultimately matters is winning. And I think that might be a tough decision they have to make.
Here's the thing. They have the Seahawks this week, the Broncos next week, and the Rams the week after that. There's a very foreseeable 0-4 future right there. There's also a very foreseeable 3-1 and a very foreseeable 2-2. After the Rams, the Panthers and the Falcons, softer matchups. But then you have the Chiefs, Rams, Chargers, and Cardinals the next 4 weeks. If you're rolling in to the Chiefs and you're 500, and this is a team that many expected to get back and make a deep run in the NFC playoffs, and Trey Lance just isn't cutting it. For me, if they're 0-4 going into week 5, I don't see how you can't not put Jimmy G in. I mean,
I agree.
These guys are professional football players, and if Trey Lance's confidence is going to be shot because he started the season 0-4 and played terribly, that's on the coaching staff for making a poor decision to begin with. But I don't think that just for the sake of his confidence, you can throw away a season that you should be competing in. So it'll be interesting. It'll be very interesting to see, and I'll be watching it every step of the way. The Baker Bowl, the Browns beat the Panthers 26-24. A lot of talk on this podcast about Baker from my 2 co-hosts. Bobby, big Baker fan. What any quick takeaways from that one?
For disappointing. I mean, I don't know how you don't win that. I really don't know how you don't win the game. I don't know what this means moving forward at this point. And I've said this before. I don't necessarily consider myself a big Baker fan, but man, was I looking forward to him wiping the floor with him. And it just didn't quite happen. He came out and had, frankly, a pretty slow start. And then, turned it up a little bit in the second half, but just didn't look ugly. I'm pretty sure he was getting booed at one point. I mean, that was
That
a
was a
gross
great way
game
to
all
put it,
around,
Dennis.
but
How do you lose that game? How do you lose that game? Bob,
it's
your
as simple as
thoughts.
that.
I mean, I don't know. I guess I viewed it from a little bit more. Of course, this is me being a little bit more of a Baker fan speaking, but I guess I kind of viewed it from a glass half full approach with a freaking 58-yard field goal, of course, has to be the thing that sinks you. I mean, come on. It's just the first kick of this kid's career from 58, or one of the first kicks of his career from 58 yards, and he drains it right down the pipe. I mean, not to mention that there were a couple questionable calls before that, but we won't really get into that too much. I know that I saw that kind of thing all over Twitter, but, at the end of the day, should you have won the game? Yes. But also, did you catch a couple bad breaks? Yes. It happens.
Baker did, in fact, not F them up, unfortunately. Patriots, Dolphins. Dolphins win 20-7. Mac Jones, yikes, maybe. Bill Belichick, maybe he was riding Brady's coattails after all. I don't know. Matt Patricia, offensive coordinator, and with Joe Judge scoring 7 points. That was a rough one. And to me, I think that game was more. I saw a lot of people, praising the Dolphins. Those dudes only scored 20 points against what I think is a very mediocre Patriots team. And I'm pretty sure they were gift wrapped 6 of those points from a Mac Jones turnover. Um, I I was this close after that game to switching my Lions prediction week 5 to a win over New England. I don't know if you guys have any other thoughts on that one.
Only one thought from me is that, more confirmation that Belichick rode Brady's coattails. But for me, that was never really in doubt for me. But I'm just glad that it's getting exposed.
Fair.
Yeah, no, it was ugly. I don't really have anything to add.
Okay.
I agree.
Colts Texans. Somehow the AFC South managed to go winless over the week 1 schedule, even though they had 2 teams play each other, which is just absolutely remarkable. So we'll
It's the
cover
only AFC South could do that.
Only the AFC South. The Colts were basically dead through the first 3 quarters. You could tell that Matt Ryan didn't play very much this preseason. And somehow they went from down 20-3 in the 4th quarter to tying it up and having a game go all the way through overtime and end in a tie. Lovie Smith, Bob, just will never die. And you can never count out Davis Mills Mafia. And just what Jim Irsay threw Carson Wentz under the bus all offseason just for Matt Ryan to not be able to beat Houston. Just unbelievable.
Here's the thing. I mean, I'm not too worried about what Jim Irsay has to say, considering his track record with quarterbacks. I mean, he had Andrew Luck and he had Peyton Manning, but he kind of ushered those guys out the back door for a variety of reasons that we don't have the time to discuss on this pod. But after that, it's been train wreck city. So it's the AFC South. It's Lovie Smith. How is Lovie Smith not 0-1? Pathetic. Absolutely pathetic from the Colts, but you know what? It is what it is.
Dennis, any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, just opening up with the tie. I thought for a second there. I mean, I thought a lot of things. I thought Pittsburgh Cincinnati was going to be a tie, which would have also been disgusting. I mean, main takeaway is ties just make me so mad in the NFL. They really do. We got to figure this out. I mean, you cannot tie in any other major sport in the United States.
Correct.
Instead of football, which is the one that everybody watches and cares the most about most of the time anyway. That makes no sense to me. But moving on.
Yeah. Jaguars, Commanders, like we mentioned earlier, Commanders had to come back and take the lead late against a Jacksonville team that wasn't really that impressive. I don't think we really needed to say too much. We pretty much covered it in the Lions preview. The Falcons and the Saints, the poor Atlanta Falcons fans, they blew a 23-10 lead in the 4th quarter. Jameis Winston, all he does is eat W's, 2 tubs, no picks. Alvin Kamara put up a touchdown rushing. Yeah, are the Bucks on upset alert next week with New Orleans?
No.
No, says Bob. Dennis?
Nah, I'm not too worried about it. You beat Atlanta by 1 point. I thought New Orleans was going to be more impressive than that to me.
Fair enough. Giants Titans, the other AFC South team, losing to an opponent that they really shouldn't have lost to. Uh, just how do you let Daniel Jones beat you?
Another game I'm going to go off on.
Saquon is back.
Saquon is back.
Saquon is back, baby. He just absolutely looked incredible.
164 yards, one tub, average 9.1 yards a carry. Yeah, what a gross game for Tennessee. Bob, what were you going to say?
Two things. I'm patting myself on the back for drafting Saquon, knowing he was going to have a bounce back season. Number two, how are we letting teams that the Lions are supposed to feast on win games against good competition and gain confidence? This is exactly what I'm talking about. Get it together, Lions.
Chargers beat the Raiders.
Okay,
yeah.
If they would have just beat their team that they had, then I wouldn't have to worry about it.
Fair enough.
Sure. Chargers beat the Raiders last week 24-19 before falling to the Chiefs this week, who blew out Arizona 44-21. I think the Raiders, I think you'd expect to score a lot more than 19 points when you bring in the guys they brought in this offseason, but Derek Carr, 2 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, are not a very good performance. I think that was one of my main reasons as to why the Raiders, regardless of Devontae Adams' addition, weren't going to be able to take the next step because Derek Carr is not him.
Chargers defense looked pretty good too. So we'll give a little credit there. I mean, my takeaway was just the AFC West is probably going to be pretty good, just like we thought. And it was another good game tonight, so that added to it.
Just a bad weekend for me in the NFL world. Everything.
Bob's favorite team, the Lions, fall. Then the Bears and Giants pull off improbable wins.
Then Baker
and then
loses.
His dark horse pick with the Raiders.
And then
just
the Raiders
absolutely went themselves.
And
absolutely went themselves.
Which means, here's the thing. I'm due for some success, and it's bound to come around.
Hopefully it's the Lions next week. 100% agree. Chiefs Cardinals. The Cardinals are not very good. Kyler Murray is getting paid a lot of money to be not really that impressive. They clearly need DeAndre Hopkins out there because that offense they can't score points. And Arizona, they might even end up finishing below Seattle as far as I'm concerned, because what we thought was a sort of 3-headed monster in the NFC West, Cliff Kingsbury is a college coach and a mediocre one at best. And Arizona, to me, is just not a threat.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Easy enough. Dennis, anything?
No, I mean, they just absolutely got smoked. I think it was definitely game plan. Also, I mean, just be honest about the fact that Arizona, no D-Hop, Rondale Moore didn't play in this game, and Christian Kirk got signed in the offseason. So, it's a different receiving core completely. And I think that factored in, and we'll see that change when some of those guys come back. But it looked ugly.
Yeah. And then the last game, before we start to wrap it up here with a few segments to close it out, last Monday night, Broncos-Seahawks, the Russell Wilson revenge game, turned on its head. Seahawks fans booing the only man to bring them a Super Bowl. Kind of weaseled his way out of town in the off season, said he wanted to be the quarterback. If he wanted to be the quarterback of the future, all he had to do was sign the contract. But another team that Russell Wilson didn't play very much this preseason, and it showed. And the Seahawks, Gene said they wrote him off, but he didn't write back. What more can you say?
Derek, you stole my thunder, man. Come on.
Oh, I'm sorry, Dennis. I apologize.
It's all right. I didn't know how you wanted to do this next segment, so I was going to get into it, but
Okay. Well,
That's okay.
we won't have to talk too much more about it, but I think to be fair, there was nothing to ever write home about for Geno Smith. He's been like a mediocre backup level quarterback his entire career. So I for one do not regret writing off Geno Smith. But yeah, that'll do it for our week one recap. We're going to introduce a new segment this week, and it's called Winners and Losers. Uh, as it sounds, each week we'll take just someone who won, an individual performance, a team performance, a group of people, maybe a group of fans, and we're going to categorize them as winners and losers. So, Dennis, sorry for stealing your thunder, but go ahead and start us off.
It's okay. As one might expect, my winner this week is Geno Smith. Geno Smith won. I mean, you beat Russ in his return to Seattle after Russ is getting booed out there on his way out. Uh, I mean, Geno Smith looked pretty good. The Seattle team overall just played pretty well. And then to top it all off, you just dropped the quote of the season. They wrote me off, but I didn't write back, just right off the top. And I mean, you got everybody talking about Geno Smith, even if it's not just because he beat Russ. They're talking about Geno Smith, so he's a winner.
Correct. Bob, who's your winner?
My winner of week one is none other than Cooper Rush, because he has a job, and he's going to be required to do something besides sit on the pine. And honestly, with the way that Dak was looking before he got injured, Cooper Rush could be able to make a prompt upgrade, given that performance. So I always want to see the CMU Chippewas get in the mix, and nothing better than to never wish injury on anybody, but always nice to have another opportunity for a guy you like.
I'm not gonna lie,
Yeah.
Dak looked horrible, and I mean he did not look good at all. And the couple of games that Cooper Rush got into last year, I felt like he did okay.
Yeah, he beat Minnesota.
Yeah, he wasn't horrible. So I mean, I'm not there yet with the. I don't want to be blasphemous by any means, but Cooper Rush not atrocious. Dak looked pretty bad, and then got hurt.
Yeah, and I'll wrap it up. I was going back. There are a lot of really great candidates for week one winners. Steelers fans were a candidate. The Mike Tomlin luck just never ceases to fail. Uh, you know, the Chargers, had they won tonight, were going to be my winners. Actually, the winner would have been myself for being vindicated with my pick of the Chargers being the team to win the AFC West. But I alluded to it earlier. My winner is Justin Jefferson. I think he rated himself as the number one in this league. Jamar Chase, very talented. AJ Brown, very talented. DeAndre Hopkins, very talented. But Justin Jefferson, for the most part, just largely seems unstoppable. And, Cooper Kupp, very good as well. But there's something just about Justin Jefferson's ability not only to do what Cooper Kupp does, which is be a reliable catch passer and route runner, but he can also take the top off the defense. So my winner is going to be Justin Jefferson for this week because, like I said earlier, he is him. Dennis, you're a loser.
Yeah, I mean, I
Lot of
feel like
losers out there this week.
a lot of losers out there this week, no doubt about that. And I feel like I'm beating a dead horse here, but it's Jerry Jones and the Dallas Cowboys. I mean, just absolutely didn't look good at all. And then to lose Dak for, I don't know, I mean, Jerry said that 2 or 3 weeks or whatever, but, probably going to be longer than that. Jerry Jones out here trying to play doctor in the post game, tell everybody how long Dak's going to be out before he knows anything. But, I mean, it's not a good situation. And I mean, it's like the old saying goes, if you put worse players on the field, your team is worse. And that's kind of what happened. It was kind of like, the guys on the field just weren't as good as they were a season ago, and maybe Dallas is accustomed to, and it showed. And it was kind of just like everybody was pretending that it was going to happen. But like Bobby alluded to earlier, skill position wise, defense solid. I mean, they did hold Tampa Bay to 19 points. If anything, that's the more concerning side of the ball. offense just couldn't get anything going. And of course, the Bucks defense is good, but still for me, the loser of the week is just the entire Dallas Cowboy community, which brings a smile to my face.
Bob, go ahead.
The loser of week 1, so that probably only rivals Jerry Jones is none other than me, because every hope that I had going into week 1 of NFL football was absolutely wrong in every way, shape, and form. You know, I guess I'm just putting my love and faith in the wrong people in this league, but it's okay. I'm gonna keep my head high. On to week 2.
You have my support, Bob. Another honorable mention for winner, cowboy hats. The Dallas Cowboys team doctor got a lot of media attention for wearing his cowboy hat, which was pretty dope. My loser for this week is going to be NFL kickers. Chris Boswell missed a potential game winner before nailing the game winner. Evan McPherson had one blocked, missed another one because of the laces. Harrison Butker, I think, had to get carted off. Rodrigo Blankenship was waived to start because he missed a field goal as well. I'm sure there were other missed field goals I missed, but it was a week for kickers in the NFL, and a lot of points left on the board, and
everyone except Cade York.
Everyone except Cade York, but a lot of games were won, lost, and tied on the legs of kickers and their, inability to make kicks. Any other honorable mentions out there?
The Detroit Lions, losers of the week, for making me look horrible and for putting faith in them. Yeah, there's not much to say there.
The Packers wide receiver core was my other top nominee for getting thrown under the bus after only getting 94 yards receiving as an entire unit. That's worse than the Lions last year. That's worse than the Lions receiving core last year.
I was going to say Nathaniel Hackett after completely botching Monday Night Football and not utilizing the 3 timeouts that he's not allowed to take with him after the game. Somebody needs to tell him that.
Yeah, not utilizing the timeouts, letting the clock run, and then not paying the guy, or then not using the guy who you paid $256 million for to win you the game. Oh, there's another kicker that missed. Brandon McManus missed a game winner. There's another kicker. I'm trying to think of anything else. Lions fans for brawling outside of the stadium. I don't know if either of you saw those videos, but there were some fights inside the stadium and outside the stadium. The Raiders, I think, are big-time losers for laying an absolute egg. Derek Carr specifically, loser of the week for laying an egg. But yeah, that'll be something we will continue throughout. I think it'll be a fun way to add another segment to the Right Bench Ballers and Garbage Time Takes Your Money, just to sort of take like a general, winners and losers that goes above and beyond the scoreboard. But speaking of Right Bench Ballers, I hope you guys have yours ready because it's that time again, every episode that everyone knows and loves, the Right Bench Baller. Bob, do you want to take it away with your Right Bench Baller?
I do. I'm happy to announce this Right Bench Baller because it's someone that I haven't had any faith in, and he showed up, and it's none other than Lions corner Jeff Okudah is going to be.
Oh, that was going to be mine.
Is going to be my Right Bench Baller this week.
Oh no, we got to have some sort of tiebreaker. Wow.
He was also another honorable mention I was thinking of for winner of the week, but I was going to use him as my Right Bench Baller instead. Fuck. It's a great pick, Bob.
I can't believe I'm saying this, but the guy actually looked like he deserved to be picked highly, and I'm glad I'm saying that because I've come out here many other times and said Jeff Okudah looks like a bum, and to be fair, he did look like a bum. So, his health is with him. He's showing up, and didn't necessarily have the easiest assignments in in week 1 of the season, and he was able to produce, I believe, second in the team in tackles on the week. And so I got to tip my hat to Jeff Okudah.
Also, Devontae Smith, 0 catches, and Jeff Okudah had tight coverage on a number of plays where Jalen Hurts wanted to go to Devontae Smith, and then also had a couple of his own pass breakups to add in there as well. Dennis, you're right bench baller, and please let it not be mine.
Yeah, so we're going with Dontrell Hilliard out of
oh my gosh, you got to be kidding me. You gotta be kidding me.
Oh no, we picked it. That's unbelievable. Derek happened to go to the third option, which is completely unprepared for. I'm sure this is unprecedented.
This is a first time. This is a garbage time takes history.
Yeah, this is
right
GTT
here.
history right here in the making at 1:13 Eastern time. This is beautiful. No, I'm going with Dontrell Hilliard, running back, basically receiver for Tennessee this week. 3 receptions for 61 yards and 2 touchdowns, and he added another 8 yards on the ground. So this is Derrick Henry's offense, but this week it was really Dontrell Hilliard's offense. So even though the Titans took the L, Dontrell is my right bench baller, and I stole it from Derek. That's unbelievable.
I almost went second to say I'm not getting stolen again, but then we wouldn't have had history. So I did not have a third option prepared. Usually I do have 2 options prepared just in case. This is unprecedented, but fortunately, there was a hero tonight, and that is Matt Amendola coming in on short notice to fill in as the Kansas City Chiefs kicker. He went
That's true.
2 for 2 with 3 extra points, was perfect in emergency relief of Harrison Butker. So thank you, Matt Amendola, not only for, doing your job for Kansas City, but also for saving my arse and giving me an easy out for right bench baller. My other right bench baller was going to be Justin Reed for filling in on kicking duties last week. I don't know if you guys saw him make an extra point in relief of Harrison Butker. But we'll stick with an actual kicker who was a little bit more impactful on the game. So Matt Amendola, thank you for your service. What a time to be alive. That was impressive.
Well done. I'm impressed that you came up with that. I mean, I know it just happened tonight, but that was smooth. That was smooth.
Thank you, Dennis. Thank you.
Yeah.
Man. But yeah, that was a great pick, Bob. I mean, Jeff Okudah, that was really encouraging. He's battling injuries and just not looked good when he was healthy. And so for him to really take control and then see the guy that he was battling with, Will Harris, give up a 50-yard bomb to A.J. Brown late in the game, very encouraging things from Jeff Okudah. Before we get into Garbage Time Takes Your Money with the picks that Bob has set out for us, I will briefly recap our picks from last week. So, like I said, 2 of us were very good. 1 of us was unfortunately not up to par. Last week's games, Bengals Steelers, Cincinnati was -6.5, and the over-under was set at 44.5. That game, if I remember correctly, ended 23-20. Dennis, can you verify?
Correct, 23-20 in OT.
Sorry to rub salt in the wound. So the under did hit, and that was nailed by both me and Bobby. And obviously the Steelers won that game, and Bob took the Steelers and was the only one. So a quick 2 for 2 right out the gate for Bob. Dennis, unfortunately, 0 for 2 there, and me 1 for 2.
Let's go.
And then our second game of last week was the Lions-Eagles. The Eagles were 3.5-point favorites, and the over-under was set to 48.5. The over hit by halftime, and the Lions, sneaky backdoor cover. Good teams win, great teams cover. The Lions cover 3.5. Yours truly had the Lions to cover and the over. Dennis also had the Lions to cover, but unfortunately took the under. So a rough 1 for 4 for Dennis this week. And Bob also took the under, but did take the Lions to cover. So me and Bob, 3 for 4 on the week, strong performances. And Dennis, let's hope Dennis bounced back this week.
Well, we're
Bob,
back to
give
fading
us
Dennis's picks again. Holy crap!
the ultimate fade
This
Dennis
is
strat. Never
this
fails.
is this is the end of 2019 again. Wow.
Well,
Take it away, Bob.
well, it's going to be another one you're going to have to earn your keep on this one because I'm not going to easy on you with our one game that I've got this week. It's going to be none other than the Carolina Panthers at the New York Football Giants. And in a game that's, at the time of checking this line about an hour or so ago, had the Giants minus 1.5 and the over-under at 43.5 points. Dennis, can I get your thoughts on this absolute barn burner between two teams that are, looking to make a name for themselves here?
Wow, I mean that's a heck of a pick, Bobby. I got to salute the pick of the game right off the bat because that is one that I will definitely be tuning into. Oh man. Well, I want to ride this like the high with the G-men with Saquon returning, but you know the Panthers have a healthy Christian McCaffrey, and they would have actually beat the Browns if it wasn't for Kate York nailing a 58-yard field goal. However, I do believe that the Browns are absolutely horrible as a football team. So, more impressive win to me was actually the Giants beating Tennessee, and it's in New York. So I think there's a reason that it's a 1.5. But give me the G-men. I could see this being a close game. I'm going with the Giants. The over and under was at what? 44.5?
43.5.
43.5. Well, I took the over.
You took the over in
I
the
don't know.
Bengals game and the under
I
in the
know.
Lions game and missed both.
I know. That's what I just realized because I was gonna fade myself, but that's not gonna work here. 43.5. These, you know what? It's no fun to bet unders, so we're just gonna bet the over. No one likes to bet the under.
Except me, I love betting the unders.
There's some analysis for you. Everybody's got to love that in-depth, high analytical analysis.
That was some DraftKings
Sure.
blog worthy
It
intel
was
right there. Dan.
just no one likes to bet the under. Be a man, bet the over. Moving on.
Derek,
Bob, you want me to go?
I'm going to get my pick in there so I'm not accused of being a copycat. Except I'm going to copy Dennis's exact picks. I'm going likewise to him. I am going the G-men. It brings me no pleasure in doing so. It brings me absolutely zero pleasure in going for the G-men because I'd rather Carolina win. However, every time I seem to invest my heart into something, I get burned every time. So I'm going with the G-men and I'm going with the over because the 43.5 just isn't that high of an over.
Correct.
Yeah, so I'm going to ride the over train with you guys. These are two not very good teams, but I think both teams' respective offenses are better than the opposing defenses they're going up against.
Mm-hmm.
The Giants put up 21 on a pretty solid Tennessee defense, all things considered. Panthers scored 26 on a average Browns defense. So I think there's points to be had. I think Saquon and C-Mac 5 years ago, two of the premier running backs in the league now, both of them sort of working their way back from injury. You got two quarterbacks who are, I'll say it, first round busts.
Question
Baker,
marks.
bust. Sam Darnold, bust. Daniel Jones, bust. It's the Bust Bowl. So I think there's points to be had. And 43.5, I think, is just, if it was 45.5, I'd be a little, more scared. But there's no reason why this game can't be 24-23. And with that being said, I think the Giants will win 24-23, but I'm taking the Panthers to cover that 1.5. I think this game comes down to probably a made field goal in either direction. So give me that one measly point that the Panthers have to cover. I'm going to run.
What's the point?
Give me the point.
Can't fault you too much there.
But yeah, Bob, that is a disgusting game. I gotta call it how it is. That game is gross,
It
and
really is.
I would recommend that everybody listening to this podcast stay away from this game in its entirety because disgusting, absolutely disgusting. So
Which is why we're picking it. Which is why we're
so
picking it.
that's good on you, Bob. I think it'd be fun to just quickly do like a brief standings recap. So while Bob plugs our socials, I'm just going to tally up the points real quick and then I'll see what we got so far. So, Bob,
All right, all
hit the
right, all
people
right.
with your socials as we start to wrap it up here.
Alrighty. On Twitter, at Garb Time Takes. That's a great spot to get the direct links to all of the articles as well. So please feel free to drop a follow on there. Let's try to get to 10 followers on our Twitter page. For anybody that's listening around at the end of our pod, we appreciate you. Also at Garbage Time Takes on Twitter. And then, of course, you can find the link to our website with all of the articles that we post in the description of this video. And rumor has it Dennis is going to be hitting us with an article in short order. I know that Derek will be ecstatic to see that. So, once again, please feel free to check out our articles linked in the description. And you can also find our podcasts there as well.
Yeah, I was just about to say we will post it for sure, but be looking for a more in-depth Bengals Week 1 recap on some of my thoughts from the Week 1 performance that didn't get to share here, and then diving into Week 2 before we face off against the Dallas Cowboys, which were a heavy subject on the podcast.
Derek, how are these totals looking?
I screwed up on mine, so I have to go back and check. 1, 2.
Well, like I said at the beginning, if we can try to get this pod to 60 views, please feel free to share it with anyone you know that might be interested. Also, if you're watching, feel free to hit that subscribe button as well. I know we have a lot more viewers than we do subscribers at this point, so let's try to get that to even out a little bit. We know all of our GTT faithful here are pretty loyal, so hit that subscribe button. That way, you just know when those pods are coming out.
All right, boys. I've got the updated standings. And first place with an 11-7 overall record, Bobby Epler, bringing us first place, very strong 11-7 to start out. In second place at 9-9, cool as a cucumber, Mr. Consistent would be yours truly. Yours truly, Derek, 500, 9-9. We're on a bit of a heater. I've been very streaky so far. Started 1-4 and then ripped off 5 of 6 and then went 0 for 4 and now I'm 3 for my last 3. So
now the real question is how bad is Dennis's bad? Bobby, any guesses?
I'm going 6 correct.
Dennis, what's your thought?
I was thinking 7, but it could be worse.
Dennis, you nailed it. You are 7-11. Same score as my favorite place to get Slurpees, 7-11. So take with those, those standings as you will, as you think about fading and tailing our predictions. But from the bottom of my heart, please do not touch the Giants-Panthers this weekend. You're just asking to lose money. But yeah, thanks again, Bob, for plugging the socials. Dennis, very much looking forward to your Week 2 Cincinnati Bengals preview that you promised me would be going up soon. And with that, just want to thank everyone again for watching. Help us reach the sub goal. Help us reach the view goal. Comment below, what you liked and what you want to see moving forward. And with that, we'll wrap it up. And so until next week, thank you so much for watching. And in 3,
2. Peace.
Peace.